Now, following fast on the heels from my previous video of EV stocks to avoid in 23, this one focuses on all those good ones. Now, I've scoured the planet for a bunch of stocks I think you might be interested in maybe adding in to your portfolio. Now, I've separated them out by country, but they all can be traded globally, so you won't miss out if you're from one country wanting to trade the other. Now, if you're interested in those ones to avoid, link at the end of this video for you to follow if you want to catch up on that. So with that, let's get into those good EV stocks to watch in 2023. So first of all, let's head to the US to have a look at three of my favorite EV stocks from there. First up is Tesla. Now, I ummed and ahed about this one, but they are, the market leader in EV stocks. And while Elon Musk is at the helm, you just can't bet against him. It is, taking, your trading into your own hands if you try that. But, the product that's delivered, maybe, people argue it's not that great, but they are, the innovatory leader in this field, and they have set the stall out for the whole of the sector, so I'm not going to bet against them this year. And looking at the chart, we've seen the lows coming in around this 100 mark. The actual price has fallen down over 75%, lost 3/4 of its value at those lows from the highs, and it's now just maybe pushing on back upwards, and targets to the upside where you'd first want this area here where there's a lot of previous noise, which is a 38.2% Fibonacci line, 220s. Then I'll be looking just under 300, and then we've got to get back to those highs just around the early 400s, and then we head into a couple of traditional auto manufacturers who've turned to EVs quite heavily and quite successfully and have ramped up the competition in the US. Now, first up is Ford, and we all know what they do, but like I said, they've certainly gone in heavy into this sector, creating relationships, building out a good product range, not just in the States but globally as well. And you can see up nearly 500% from sort of early 2020s, mid 2020s. Had a bit of a pullback of nearly 50-60%, and then it's gone a bit sideways, but we've forming out this triangle pattern that you can see here. And to me, this zone that we're colouring in here is like the key breakout zone for the bulls to jump in, then with targets of 17, 20, and those highs around about 25. And then our last of the American EV stocks, and the second of the more traditional ones, is GM, General Motors. And again, same sort of pattern of behaviour to Ford, jumping into this EV market, realising it's the future, with all the government regulations and demands on numbers of cars to be produced by certain years. Then GM are certain of taking the bull by the horns, and in the chart you can see a similar pattern to Ford. We had that up and then the pullback, and now we've got this like triangle pattern building out. And again, if it can get through here around 40, 41, then we would look to 46, 47, where there is this start of this sort of double top pattern playing out, and then upwards maybe into the mid late 60s. And if it can break on up, then it's a long way up. It's a sort of dream stratosphere, about $90. So that's the US stocks. Let's now head over to Europe, right into the Netherlands, for this truly international auto manufacturer. Now, Stellantis are headquartered in the Netherlands, but that doesn't really tell you the true picture of what these guys actually do. And if I gave you a list of the brands that they own, you'd see how truly global they are. Chrysler, Dodge, Fiat, Jeep, Lancia, Ram, Peugeot, Citroën, DS Automobiles. That list is absolutely monster. Maserati, another one. these are companies that are all moving into the EV sector. This is a real global coverage stock here, and they're adopting this new market quite heavily, and I think they are one that is very hard to bet against. And you know, we look at the charts, very similar picture to the other majors in the traditional auto manufacturers. Got this same pattern building out. We've actually got double bottom here, a lot of support around there with the volume at that price, which is roughly around 11.5. Then we'd want it to break on up to the 2021 area, then we'd be looking at the highs 25 and then on up into the early 30s. Now a quick hop across the border to Germany, once again to a couple of traditional automakers moving heavily into the EV sector and doing very well at it. Now I haven't gone for the Volkswagen Group or Porsche part of that, which might surprise some of you. I've gone for two other famous brands that I think are doing a better job in that area, and the first one is BMW. And if we head straight into the chart, you can see actually from the lows of sort of COVID start time March 20, they're up 160% in price, and we've got a lot of support around this sort of 68-70 area. Price has been doing pretty well the last few months, pushing towards highs around 100. If it can break on up from there, we're talking 125, 130, and then up into the 140s. And my second German car manufacturer I think is going to do well in the EV world is the Mercedes-Benz Group, and similar to BMW, you can see it's grown from the COVID lows 305% to the current price level that it's playing at. Got this nice double bottom in here for support around that Fibonacci zone, call that about 50, and we'll be looking for it to break the highs 78, and then we're looking into those early hundreds, 100, 110, 115 sort of area as potential upside targets. Now heading up north to Sweden and Scandinavia for this surprise package that I think could do quite well. And they are called Polestar, and for those that don't or are not familiar with them, so imagine them as like a posh Swedish Volvo brand. They are across Europe, North America, China, Asia Pacific at the moment. They manufacture out in China. They've got some good cars, good quality, seen as more of maybe a luxury brand in this sector, and could be, like I say, a surprise package for the next few years. Now it hasn't looked all that good recently in terms of share price. They bottomed out here at about 50 cents, started to bounce back a little. So if they can take off, there is a lot of upside potential in the tank here, and to get back to those highs, that's a 526% gain, so that's massive upsides. We talk a bit more shorter term, got to get through this $2 area where the pattern broke down more significantly, and then I would say maybe just under 3, and then 4.5, 5 as the more immediate targets for Polestar. Now we're switching continents to Asia, and more particularly a country called South Korea, where there's a couple of exciting EV auto brands that I think are worth a look at. First up is a company called Kia, and this is a company that's certainly turned itself around over the last decade to become a major player. They've sorted out quality, bring to the market some pretty good designs, and especially in the EV sector they have certainly embraced that, and have got a whole range of cars out there for you to get your hands on. Now the chart, we saw that really strong rise in price, but it has been in this sort of box sort of shape holding period, with the lows recently seen 61,700 in the early part of this year, and this month it's pushed on up towards that next key sort of area for it, which is that 71,000 zone. And for me, it's got to get up to the highs just over 100,000 and then to 135, and then maybe round to about 150. So that's the first of the South Korean brands. The second one you're probably more familiar with is Hyundai. Again, another car that has embraced the EV future. And in terms of share price, well, it's not been doing that great of, well, the last year, from year to year. Nice downslope, but they are reinventing themselves and bringing to the market some very good EV cars. Lows in, very similar to the Kia chart, pushing up again through these key Fibonacci areas of 32. Then we'd be looking, I think, 47 to 50, 57 to 60, and then up to those highs 70, early 70s. So that's my two from South Korea. Let's head over to Japan to find my next stock. So just the one stock I'm taking from Japan, and that stock is called Toyota. A massive global player like some of the other stocks we've looked at, but again embracing the EV world, even looking into stuff like hydrogen as well. So an interesting stock, very well established, and as you can see, stock price wise not been doing too badly. Same as a few of the other charts. We had that low of the COVID start, was up 115% over a year or so, and then just pulled on back with support levels around the 1808 mark, which is the start of that sort of pattern. Hopefully then we could see some further upside. We've got a lot of volume noise around this sort of area, which is the sort of 2000 round number zone, but if you can get on through that, 2500, 3000, could be upside potential there. So we're going to end up in China for my last two stock EV picks, and one of these is probably my favourite out the whole bunch. So let's see what they are. First up is a day trading favourite. It's not my favourite one, and they are called NIO, but I do think it's got some good upside potential. Now, outside of China, they haven't been doing so well, but inside China, they are a really, really strong proposition, and it's all around EV across the market. They're still trying globally, but if you're concentrating on one of the biggest markets for EV cars there is, then NIO you can't discount. And as you can see from the chart, what a run up it was from 2020, up nearly 4,500% before pulling back massively, down nearly 90%, and then it looks like it's stabilized a lot around this $9-10 mark. And if we look at that trend line channel, then it's just trying to nudge its way on through. Can it break on up? Well, if it does, 26, then 40, 41, and then back to those highs 66 to 70 could be a possibility. Now for my final stock is a company called Bide from mainland China, massively into the electronic sector. Not just EVs, they're into mobile phones and other electronic products, rechargeable batteries, all sorts of things, but they are very strong in China for the EV sector. Do operate also around the world, in Europe and the US, but they are a very strong proposition in, like I said, like with NIO, in one of the world's biggest EV markets. And in terms of stock price charts, probably one of the stronger ones that we've looked at so far. Big run up, like most of them, from the COVID kick-in times in the early 2020s, and these guys were up at one point to highs around about, when was it? It was June 22, up over 1,100%. Pretty massive gains there. It's been a bit more choppy, as you can see, but maybe a bit more stable also compared to some of the others. support around this 23-24 area, pushing on up. We'd like to see those next levels, the Fibonacci's taken out, 35, say in 45 the highs, and then we would hope that it could move on up into, you know, unknown new territory, which would take it up to, you know, 60 mark. So that's Bide, one of the top picks for the EV sector for 2023 and beyond. So the big takeaway for me from the list of stocks here was the resurgence of the older, more traditional auto manufacturers around the globe into the EV sector, putting those new guys under a lot more pressure. You know, your Lucids, your Rivians, those type of stocks. And only a few of the new guys made it into the list. Ones like Tesla, NIO, Bide. So, you know, it's a market that the old guys are moving in on. So I think that's where you need to focus in the shorter term. They've got much more, you know, financial stability and strength compared to some of these others, and less of a supply chain production issue as like some of the new guys. And because of that, you know, they're more of a risky stock. That's not to say some of them might not come through, but it is certainly becoming harder. Let me know in the comments below what you think is going to happen to the EV sector next. Who are your picks for this year? Do you agree, disagree with my list? Love to hear your comments. Now, if you're a bit bearish the EV sector for this year, then like I said right at the start, here comes that video link for those EV stocks to avoid this year.